Hello, my name is Stacy. Welcome to the Wild Yarrow Apothecaries podcast, where we focus mainly on herbalism, but we also talk about all things holistic health. So grab a cup of herbal tea and enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to this episode where we are going to be talking about 7 herbal misconceptions. And before we really get started, let me give my disclaimer that I am not a medical professional. This is for educational purposes only. And with most things out there, there are definitely some misconceptions when it comes to herbalism. So I thought, why not make this podcast episode where we debunk a lot of misconceptions when it comes to this topic. And so, yeah, let's get started. So, I have 7 misconceptions. We're going to start with one, of course. And one is that you have to know everything to become an herbalist. So, you have to know all things, and you also have to learn overnight to become an herbalist. And that is not true whatsoever. I strongly believe, and I talk about this a lot, I personally think that herbalism is super easy, but there's a lot to it. There is so much to herbalism, and because of this, it can be so overwhelming. And I have been nonstop studying herbalism, I think for like 9 years now. So 9 years I have been nonstop studying about herbalism, and there's still so much that I don't know. And I have a funny feeling in 20 years from now, in 20 years, I can say, hey, I have been studying herbalism nonstop for 29 years, and there's still just so much that I don't know. And that's because herbalism is a very open-ended topic. There's no ending to learning when it comes to herbalism. So, and you don't have to know like everything overnight. Herbalism is one of those things that since there's a lot to it, it's really good to just start slow and just really grasp everything, and really just to understand everything that you're learning and take it by section by section. And this is why I have the Herb of the Month membership, so you can learn about one herb in great detail at a time. So you're not trying to learn everything, at once. And once you start really, just piecing things together, everything will start clicking together. And so, yeah, so you don't have to learn everything overnight, and you don't have to know everything to become an herbalist. And I still have people come to me and ask me things that I have no clue. And when they ask me, and I'm like, I have no idea, I'm like, let's go look it up though. And so we go and we look it up. We look up what the answer is. And so, and I like to do it in books. I have a ton of books, and I'm like, okay, what book do I think would give the best information for um, this question, if that makes sense? And so I think that I actually I find it that I prefer people that can say, I don't know, instead of trying to say things that aren't true, if that makes sense. And I really respect people that you're like, I don't know, let's go figure it out. Let's go see if we can find the answer out. So yeah. All right, so misconception number 2, and that is there's only one right way to practice herbalism. There are some herbalists out there that definitely believe this, and I don't agree with this. I think that er- everybody can practice herbalism a little bit differently, and I think I practice herbalism differently than, a lot of other herbalists. And just to give an example, one of my uh, fellow herbalist, which I respect, and I think that he is an amazing herbalist. But he is very science. That is his niche. He loves to, look up studies and practice, herbalism in a very science way. I am kind of 50-50. 50% of me, I nerd out on science. I just think nerding out on science is so fun. But the other 50% of me loves to use my intuition, and I love to, just kind of be like, oh, what happens if this, if I do this, what happens if I do that? And, you know, and I also, maybe I shouldn't say 50-50, because I also love to sneak in a little bit of woo-woo, a little bit of spiritual in there. So um, maybe it's kind of like 40 science, 40 intuition, and am I doing my math right? 20 woo-woo. And so, and I like that. So, and one of the things is most of the time, I love to eyeball things. I love to eyeball my creations, and this is where the intuition comes in. So I'm like, ooh, let me use my intuition and do this. To where there are some herbalists that love to measure everything. They feel more comfortable measuring everything. And there's no wrong way. I think, if you feel comfortable measuring everything, that is your way of doing herbalism. If you love to eyeball like I do, that's our way of doing herbalism. If you want to do everything science-based, that's amazing. If you want to bring a lot of intuition, that's amazing. And oh my goodness, let's talk about this too. There is a popular remedy out there that was coined by Rosemary Gladstar that is called fire cider. And she came up with like a base recipe for fire cider. But and I can't remember how many years. Like it was between 3 to 5 years ago, I think. She came out with a book called Fire Cider. And what she did is, yeah, she has the base recipe, but she contacted a bunch of herbalists out there who made fire cider their own. They created the fire cider, but then they added their own little touch to it. And so in this fire cider book, there's a ton of recipes in there of how herbalists made the fire cider their own. And I just absolutely love that. So, you don't have to just do the fire cider Rosemary Gladstar's way. You can, tweak it and make it your own. I personally, when I make fire cider, I love oranges in mine, and that's not in the base recipe, but I love to add oranges because I just feel like it makes it taste a little bit better. And so I love oranges. I also like adding like rosemary and thyme and turmeric, but that's my way to where other people, I've seen some people add like elderberries in it. You can modify. So to me, even though there's a lot of science to herbalism, there's also an art to it too. There's like an art to where you can kind of play and make your own concoction, make your own, if you want to get woo-woo, you make your own potion. And you can just play around and experiment. Just, make sure that you practice safely, which we'll talk more about in a little bit, but practice safely, but experiment and make herbalism your own and, see what you can do. And it's fun. It's really fun. And I do want to say, on this topic, I recently had two people contact me and they're like, oh my gosh, Stacey, this is the funniest and most frustrating thing ever. They're like, I keep having this really great idea, and I want to post it on social media. But when I'm about to, make this content, I see someone else has made that content too. And I'm like, still make the content and make it your own. What you're saying is that someone made the content their own, but then you make it your own. So, let's say someone, and we're just gonna pick a random name. Let's say there's a herbalist named Sally. And Sally decides to make content about 7 herbal misconceptions, but maybe her misconceptions are going to be very different than my content for 7 herbal misconceptions. And we're going to be having, slightly different ideas. And that is a very beautiful thing, that we can all have our own ways. And so, yeah. So there is not only one right way to practice herbalism, and as long as you're practicing safely, make it your own, experiment, have fun with it. So, yeah. All right, let's move to misconception number 3. And this is that you have to compete with other herbalists. And this is not true. This is really not true. And I think what happens is when we as herbalists start practicing herbalism on social media, we surround ourselves with other herbalists and we think, oh my gosh, there's so many other herbalists. And this freaks us out and we think that we need to compete. But in all honesty, there's not that many herbalists in this world. We are a minority. There's not enough of us. I think that there should be more herbalists. I honestly think that every household should have an herbalist in there, or at least every family should have an herbalist, out there, and that we should all know um, how to take care of ourselves and um, all of that. And so, yeah, so there's no need to compete. And like I was saying before, if you make herbalism your own, we all do herbalism a little bit differently. So the right people are going to find me. So the right people who are wanting to be like maybe 40% science, 40% intuition, 20% woo-woo, they're going to come to me and they're going to want to, have me help them. Or, if someone's like, you know what, I just want all the science. I just want to know, that's all I want to know about herbalism is the science stuff. Then they're going to probably go to my fellow herbalist friend that is all about the science. Or what's also really fun is I have a few people that like to support. They pick, I think, like a handful of herbalists and they support all of us equally. And they appreciate all of our differences. And I think that that is beautiful. I think that that's amazing. And so, if you become an herbalist, there's no need to compete. We should be working together. We should be collaborating. We should be learning from each other and supporting each other instead of wanting to compete with each other. And I'm going to be honest with you. There are 2 herbalists out there that decided that they wanted to compete with me, and I'm not one to compete. I do not want to compete. And it got so bad that I ended up blocking them on social media. I don't like to block people. I don't like to block other herbalists, but I'm not one to compete with. If you want to compete with someone, go find another herbalist that wants to compete too. But I just want to be over here doing my own thing and supporting other herbalists. I want to support other herbalists and I want to encourage people who are interested to become herbalists, I want to encourage them to make it their own. And I'm not going to push my ways on them as long as they're practicing, like I said, safely. I think they should be able to practice herbalism whichever way. And I'm not going to compete with them and say, hey, you have to do it my way or it's wrong. No. So there's no need. There's not enough herbalists in the world. We need more herbalists. And not only that, but we need more herbalists um, that want to support and to collaborate. So there's room for us all. There's room, there's so much room. We have plenty of room in um, our herbal community. And I welcome anybody and everybody who wants to nerd out with me, wants to support other herbalists, who wants to collaborate with other herbalists. I am here to nerd out and also kind of do my own thing. So yeah, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. All right, let's go to misconception number 4, and that is the perfect formula or herb exists. And so I have I've had people reach out to me and they have said, I have this, and this going on. What is the one herb that can solve all of my issues? And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. There's not going to be one or even two herbs that are going to solve all of your issues. And we're going to talk more about this later, but as much as um, hold on just a sec. Um, I want to know if I have it to where I'm talking about it in this episode or I'm doing a bonus episode with more misconceptions. Which one am I putting it in? Um, I think it's in the bonus episode. So it's the bonus episode, but that's okay. We'll talk a little bit about it here too. So as much as I love um, herbalism, herbs can't fix all of our problems by themselves. We need to use herbs while we're adopting a healthy lifestyle. So that is, you know, good nutrition, not perfect nutrition, but good nutrition, making sure you have plenty of vitamins and minerals, making sure that you're getting plenty of movement, making sure that you are practicing stress management. Stress can cause so much havoc on the body. So trying to, get your body to be able to adapt to stress is really important. Looking at what do you have in your household? Do you have a lot of toxic, but herbalism can help a lot too, but is not going to fix all of your problems. It's just one of the pieces that can help to fix some of the problems, if that makes sense. And what's really frustrating too about herbalism, I love herbalism, I really do, but we're all one size fits all. And so when it comes to herbs, sometimes it's a trial and error to figure out what herbs really work for our body. So sometimes I'll be like, oh, this person, has this constitution, has these symptoms. And so because of this, let's try this herb. And it might not work. And so we have to switch and try another herb. And sometimes what makes it even more frustrating is that an herb that works today might not work a year from now. Our bodies change. Our bodies change a lot. And so yeah, so there isn't a perfect formula or a perfect herb that is going to fix all of your problems. And I think this comes from the theory cure-all. Our society is always looking for a cure-all, a cure. I honestly, and I talk about this a lot, I don't believe in cures. Give me just a moment here. I need to get a swig of water. I personally don't think that there is such a thing as cures. I think that there are medications that can, for a short period of time, mask the symptoms, but the problem is still there. To me, the closest thing to a cure is to figure out what the root causes are to your issues and try to fix those root causes. And in my opinion, with all the research that I've done, I believe that our society has taught us a bunch of tiny bad habits, and all of these tiny bad habits put together can create illnesses and diseases, and that is, and most of the time, like I said, it's going to be bad nutrition, it's going to be vitamin and mineral deficiencies, living a stationary lifestyle, being stressed to the max, and having a lot of toxins in your household. So these to me are what, um, and having like a really bad mindset too. I kind of sometimes lump that into stress. But if you have a rotten mindset, that could also. Um, but But yeah, and that is mostly, in my opinion, for chronic diseases or chronic issues. I think is what these bad habits cause is the chronic. Acute, not so much. So if you have acute, like if you break a bone, of course, that's not going to be from the bad habits. If you get like a nasty infection, it depends, if your immune system is super low, if you have like a compromised immune system, that could be a chronic thing that's causing that infection. So it could be chronic, or it could just be one of those coincidences to where, you just have a nasty infection, if that makes sense. And so it's really like what's causing that infection. But I mainly what I'm talking about is chronic here, not acute. So yeah, I hope that that makes sense. I don't believe that there's a perfect formula or a perfect herb, but we do use formula and herbs though, because they are definitely a piece. They are a piece to um, helping to solve your problems. So, yeah. All right, misconception number 5. Herbalism is only for physical healing. So a lot of us, most of the time, I will admit that I do use herbs for physical healing, but sometimes we could do it for emotional healing or even like spiritual healing. So if someone is having grief, the grief is a very emotional symptom, but that emotional symptom can have physical harm to our body. And so herbs like um, hawthorn, linden, rose, lavender, um, lemon balm. These are all fantastic herbs for grief. I think holy basil too. Holy basil or tulsi. These are all fantastic herbs to um, have for grief. They help to support our body through grief. Um, Also, if you're anything like me, I have an overactive mind. My mind is always just going 90 miles per hour. Um, and herbs like skullcap and passion flower can help with the overactive mind. Do be careful with them because they may make you sleepy, so keep that in mind. Don't want you to fall asleep at an inconvenient time. But what else? Lemon balm can be very an uplifting herb. Linden can be a very uplifting herb. So there are herbs out there that can help with emotional healing as well. Um, Yarrow they say yarrow can bring confidence. Yarrow is like a warrior herb. It's named after the Greek god Achilles because the Latin name for yarrow is Achillea mellifolium, and the Achillea is um, is after the Greek god um, Achilles. So herbalism is not only for physical healing. One of my most successful clients that I had, she came to me and she's like, I need help because I want to quit smoking, but every time I quit smoking, I get really depressed. Can you help me out? And so we didn't just do herbs. We also did nutrition. We did a lot of mindset, um, but and a lot of stress management. But we did do some herbs. I can't remember what herbs on the top of my head, but we did uh, practice with some herbs, and it really helped her out. All right, let's go to misconception number 6. And that is since herbs are natural, they're all safe. Um, no, this is a misconception. A lot of herbs are safe, but not all herbs are safe. So I don't want to fearmonger. This isn't to fearmonger. This is just to help you guys to practice herbalism in a safe way. So unfortunately, there are some herbs out there that can conflict with medication. So if you're on medication, it's important to figure out what herbs can conflict with that medication. I don't know why they set it up this way, but it's easier to search, like to do a search like what herbs conflict with this specific medication than to um, than to try to search what medications conflict with this specific herb, if that makes sense. So let's just say Prozac for instance. That was the first herb that popped in my head. So let's take you're taking Prozac. So it's easier to say to do a search on what herbs conflict with Prozac, but it's almost near impossible to say what medication conflicts with St. John's wort. Um, does that make sense? And so we want to make sure that when you're practicing herbalism, that you are, um, that you just do a quick search. You just do a couple quick searches. If you have illnesses, it's important to find out, you know, what herbs may conflict with illnesses. I can give a couple examples. For example, immune stimulant herbs like elderberries and echinacea may conflict with autoimmune disorders. So you're going to want to be really careful with immune stimulants if you have an autoimmune disorder. Another thing is lemon balm, one of my favorite herbs, unfortunately conflicts with um, hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. So if you have either of those two, you won't want to take lemon balm. So it's really important that if you're taking medication or if you have an illness, before you consume any herbs, you find out what herbs can conflict with those medications and what herbs can conflict with that illness. Let me give you a couple examples on medication. One of the biggest herbs, St. John's wort. Love that herb too. One of my favorite herbs is St. John's wort. It's amazing. But there are so many medications out there that conflict with St. John's wort. So before you take St. John's wort, you have to check your medication to see if that medication will conflict with St. John's wort. I only know two for sure. So if you're on any type of antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication, you do not want to take St. John's wort because the combination of the medication and St. John's wort can give you a toxic amount of serotonin. We love serotonin, we want serotonin, but we don't want that much serotonin that you would get from St. John's wort and the medication. Also, birth control. St. John's wort can um, what's the right word? I lost the right word. Can cancel out birth control. So I have had a few people contact me, and they're like, "Yep." They're like, I took St. John's wort while I was on birth control, and I got a happy surprise. So, and most of these were from a long time ago. So a lot of these people, their kids are already grown, but. So if you're on birth control, be careful. If you're on antidepressants, you don't want to take St. John's wort. Hawthorn, another favorite herb of mine, may conflict with some heart medications out there. So if you're on the heart medications, you want to make sure that Hawthorn doesn't conflict with them. Another one, and this is actually for medication and for illness, licorice root. Licorice root conflicts with both high blood pressure and high blood pressure medication. So if you have either, you don't want to take licorice root. And so we want to make sure that we look at, medications, we look at illnesses, but we also want to look at dosages. There are some herbs where we can have them in high dosage and it's not going to be a problem. But we have some herbs that we have to have on low dosages because in high dosages they can create a problem. A lot of nutritives. Not all of them, but some nutritives. So these are herbs that are packed with all sorts of vitamins and minerals. These are herbs that are safe to take every day. A lot of them we can have in high dosages. For example, nettle, nettle, oat straw, hawthorn, cleavers. Um, so Real life, I had to pause that episode for just a sec. So let's talk about what we're talking about. So nutritives, the ones I just mentioned, nettle, oat straw, hawthorn, cleavers, chickweed. These are all herbs that we can take in larger amounts if we want to. But then any herbs that are high in volatile oils. So how you could tell if an herb is high in volatile oil. These are very flavorful herbs. These herbs have a lot of flavor. We don't want these herbs in high dosages because these herbs are really, really potent. These high volatile oils can cause issues. One of the main issues that herb high in volatile oils can cause is acid reflux. So if you ever consume an herb that has lots of flavor like peppermint, um, lemon balm, turmeric, ginger, oregano, any of these herbs, if you have them in a high dosage, they can cause acid reflux. So if you ever take them and you get acid reflux, I would try to reduce the dosage and you're probably going to be fine. Also, one of the most potent herb that has volatile oil in it, that have a lot of volatile oil in it, is oregano. I had a client tell me once, and this was before she saw me, she's like, I decided to get oregano tincture, and she said, I can't remember, if she said she took a half of a squeezeful or a whole squeezeful, but she did that, and she's like, Stacy, she goes, it burned, and I'm like, I bet. So any flavorful herbs, we want to take them on, you know, in a smaller dosage. But some herbs still don't have a lot of flavor that we still want to take. In smaller dosages, like there is a herb out there called poke. Um, poke, um, we people usually will consume the root, poke root, or the berries. They are not safe to take in large amounts, and also you have to process them in a certain way to make them safe. So what you would want to do also with herbs when you research herbs, they have dosages. I know that when I create my PDF files for our Herb of the Month membership, I always have dosages in the main PDF file for the herbs. So, and I always will say, hey, with these herbs like oregano, a little bit goes a long way. You don't want to use that a lot. So when you're researching herbs, you need to, check out the dosages as well. Once you have um, the dosages, the medication, the illness safety part down, and the preparation, there's not a lot of herbs that, it matters on preparation, or at least, a lot of herbs aren't dangerous. Well, let's talk about one more. Elderberries. Elderberries should not be consumed raw. One or two is going to be fine, but you don't want to consume too much elderberries raw because they have cyanide in them. When you cook them, when you cook the elderberries, the cyanide goes away. And so yeah, um, but once you got that down, once you got medications, illnesses, um, how to or dosages, let's see, dosages, medication, illnesses, and preparation down, then you can experiment with the herbs all you want to, and you will know how much you can put in others. So, as much as I love herbs, there you can get hurt from using them improperly. You need to use them properly to use them safely. And there are some herbs that can be harmful if not consumed. Oh, and one more thing, one more story that I have. I actually have a friend who is on um, blood thinners. He's on blood thinners, and someone told him to take ginkgo, and ginkgo is also a blood thinner, and that caused a lot of issues. So you have to look out for things like that too. But I'm sure if you look up, your medication, like if you took that blood thinner and you're like, what herbs conflict with this blood thinner? It would probably have ginkgo in there. It would probably have ginkgo and red clover. Ginkgo and red clover are both blood thinners, and we don't want that to be anymore. All right, so let's go to number seven. Misconception number seven is herbs and Western medicine don't go together. This is false. So, as someone who practices herbalism and holistic health, I do believe that herbalism and Western medicine, they have a time and a place, and that they can be used together. Now, I would prefer my preference would be that, we could all live naturally, but I do realize that sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Um, if I'm having, like I said, if I'm having an acute problem, most of the time, like a cold or a flu is no big deal. Like I've never had to go to the doctors, knock on wood, for a cold or a flu, yet. So like that is an acute, and I won't go to the doctors for that because yeah. But if I break a bone, please take me to Western medicine. If I have a heart attack, please take me to Western medicine. Um, so like acute issues, I think a lot of acute issues needs to be taken care of by Western medicine. But um, most chronic conditions, I think that we could heal most of them by lifestyle changes and herbalism. Um, I I do think that there are a couple exceptions. I think that there are some people who have tried everything under the sun. And if you can look yourself in the mirror, if you can look yourself in the mirror and you can say, look, I have tried everything I can think of. I changed my nutrition. I making sure that I have plenty of vitamins and minerals. I have been working my butt off on stress management. I've been working on having a healthy mindset. I exercise. I've changed, um, all of my household cosmetics and cleaners or cleaning products, I should say, and I still have this chronic condition, then I think, okay, Western medicine needs to get involved. If you can look yourself in the mirror and say all that, yeah, Western medicine. Also, I think that there are times like if someone has high pain, like if they have high chronic pain, I think Western medicine would be really good to help them with that chronic pain while we figure out what the root cause is. So what is causing this root causes or what's causing this chronic pain? And see if we can, lower the chronic pain naturally and maybe slowly wean off of Western medicine. Or if someone is in a deep, deep depression, definitely I think they need to go see Western medicine. And then maybe we can try to figure out, probably if someone's in a deep depression, they would need to have three main people involved. Western medicine, Western medicine would need to get involved. A therapist would need to get involved, and then maybe a holistic health practitioner or an herbalist can get involved, and the three of us could work together on trying to figure out how to get this person out of a deep depression. Um, and then hopefully, over time, with the help of the doctor, the Western medicine doctor, wean that person off of the antidepressants. And so I do think that that herbalism and Western medicine can work together, and that there's a time and a place for both. So I do prefer natural healing, and I always try to push natural healing, but I do know that Western medicine is needed sometimes. So, so yeah, so I hope that all makes sense. So that is our 7 herbal misconceptions. I am going to hop off of this recording, and I'm gonna go record 7 more herbal misconceptions for our membership, our bonus episode. So if you want to hear more misconceptions that we can debunk, come join our membership. Come nerd out with us. There's so much to this membership. So yeah. So let me know if you have any thoughts, if you have any questions on this episode, and I hope you have a great day. All right, guys, bye. I hope you loved this episode. If you did, please make sure to follow Wild Yarrow Apothecaries podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave me a review. Do you want to hear more episodes like this? Join our Herb of the Month membership, where I add a bonus part of this episode. In this membership, we also have a lot of PDF files, videos. Every 3 months that you're a member, I send you 3 herbs, and we have so many other benefits. Come nerd out with us, and thank you for listening to the Wild Yarrow Apothecaries podcast. Have a great day.